In this section, we'll look at logical arguments and how we describe them and critique them in terms of validity. So there are two basic types of arguments. There are what we call inductive arguments. Inductive arguments draw a general conclusion from specific premises. Now remember, an argument has to have at least one premise and a conclusion. So here we're taking specific reasons and drawing a general conclusion, you might say. The other type of argument is a deductive argument. Deductive arguments are almost kind of the reverse. You draw a specific conclusion from a general premise. So you have a general reason for drawing a specific conclusion. Let's look at an example of each. So with inductive arguments, one example is, Saturday, I found a parking spot in front of my building. Sunday, I found a parking spot in front of my building. Monday, I found a parking spot in front of my building. From these experiences, I know that there will always be a parking spot in front of my building. So I'm taking specific info about Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and using it to go ahead and form a general conclusion that I will always have parking. So the idea is I'm looking at specific instances to draw a general conclusion. An example of a deductive argument down below, there is no mail delivery on federal holidays. Today is Veterans Day. Therefore, I won't expect a letter from my lawyer to come in the mail today. So here we have a general premise that there is no mail delivery on federal holidays. So we've got general information about mail delivery. No mail on holidays. Okay, so all holidays. And then we're told that it's Veterans Day. Today is specifically Veterans Day, and we draw the specific conclusion that we will not get mail today. No mail today. So these are the two main types of arguments you'll find in logic and in the real world, inductive arguments and deductive arguments. So some key distinctions between inductive and deductive arguments. The premises in deductive arguments may be used to prove their conclusions. So those general premises we have in deductive arguments, we can attempt to prove specific conclusions with. However, in an inductive argument, the premises in an inductive argument may be used to support their conclusions, but not prove them. Because we're looking at specific situations, we can't prove a general theory with them. All we can do in inductive arguments is collect more data to strengthen our arguments for concluding a certain thing. So we can collect more data to strengthen an inductive argument, but we'll never be able to prove an inductive argument. Let's look at some examples of inductive and deductive arguments and identify which is which. Problem one, or example one. All fish live in the water. A trout is a type of fish, so trout live in the water. So we're starting with saying that all fish live in the water. This is a general statement about fish. So it's a general premise. And then we are given the information that a trout is a type of fish, and then make the specific conclusion that trout live in water. So that's a specific conclusion from a general premise. So this would be a deductive argument. Deductive is when you start with a general premise and form a general or a specific conclusion. Statement 2. All brown dogs in my neighborhood are small dogs. Therefore, all brown dogs are small. So here we are talking about all brown dogs, but specifically in my neighborhood. So this is a specific location, so a specific premise that all the brown dogs in my neighborhood are small dogs. And what we did is we talked about all brown dogs being small from that specific premise. So this is a general conclusion. When we go from specific to generalize to a conclusion, we say this is an inductive argument. Argument 3. My friends who are in college eat pizza. We're talking about my friends who are in college. Therefore, all college students eat pizza. So we're going from some specific people who are in college to talking about all college students, a general result. Specific premise to a general result is an inductive argument. Last example. All ministers are married. Berhain is a minister, therefore Berhain is married. Here we're talking about all ministers. Now that may or may not be true. One thing to note is that just because I state a premise doesn't mean it's true. But what we want to do is identify what type of argument this is. And this is a general premise. All ministers are married. This is a general premise, a general idea. And then we're going to a specific person. So we're moving from a general idea to a specific idea. So that's deductive. That's a deductive argument.